See, it's like this. At that point of time, I was commanding my unit in the east. We were part of a formation which was, in the Siliguri corridor. So when the Kargil, intrusions came to light, certain actions started. The local formations in Kargil started responding. And simultaneously, reserve formations, which were dual tasked from the east, were mobilized. And at that point of time, our division was, mobilized by train overnight. I mean, when I say train, a set of trains. It took us about nearly uh, a couple of weeks to reach Udhampur, and we were concentrated at Udhampur. The operations at Kargil were ongoing, and at that point of time, it was not clear whether we will have to go and reinforce whatever is happening in Kargil, or we were to open up another front. But as events progressed, we were asked to open up another front. So when we were in the preparation for opening up another front, by then the Pakistanis were kicked out of Kargil. Right. Okay. So, and the whole thing stopped. But having said that, you see, the planning for Kargil didn't start in April, May 99. It started much before. It started sometime in, November, December of 98. And the intrusions took place during winter. It was only that around April, we started getting intimation of some intrusions. People who were graziers who had gone up uh, halfway to Tololing and Tiger Hill in the lower reaches came to know that there is some movement on top. Then that's when they said. And then slowly firings took place. Then initially the assessment was they would be just normal intruders. And it was attempted to push them back with whatever the local troops were in that brigade and some reserves. It didn't work. It was only by mid-May that we really came to know the extent of this, intrusions. And that is when, a plan was put into place and the reinforcement was brought in. A lot of readjustments were done at national level, and build up took place, and ultimately it led to what it was. See, the intrusion was quite wide. It was over about 80, 90 kilometers, maybe a little more also. Right? At multiple points, they had come well in. Now, the Kargil area is completely high altitude. Kargil itself is at high altitude, and we're looking at 13, 14,000 feet height. And these peaks which were overlooking, the Kargil Dras area, uh, were at about 18, 19,000 feet. And that's a place where oxygen is rare. And why the Pakistanis came here was this entire area from Dras to Kargil, the National Highway 1 Alpha, which runs from Srinagar, Dras, Kargil to Leh. The main, at that time, was the main, lifeline to Leh Ladakh. Right. And between Dras and Kargil, and maybe a little more to the east, in a place till a place called Mashko Valley, this highway is under observation from the peaks. And those peaks were actually in Indian territory, Indian part of the LOC. I mean, this side. But the Pakistanis had intruded to a point where they could see this road for a good about 50, 60 kilometers. And then they brought in artillery, deployed artillery, and then they started firing across so that the movement on this road was cut off. Right? And I mean, today we talk of non-contact warfare. Pakistanis tried it at that point of time. They occupied these ridges at height, brought artillery up behind, and they started firing on this road so that there was no movement on this road. They fired and destroyed the Kargil ammunition dump completely. Right? They were quite effective, actually. And during daytime, it was virtually impossible to move on that road. It was only at night time we used to move on that road. To the extent that they used locals, some locals in Kargil, Dras, and all those areas, to even speak from the PCOs and do international calls and tell them across what's happening there. And the main idea was if you choke off one alpha, that is the National Highway Srinagar to Leh, and people beyond Leh, after a point of time, will be starved of rations, supplies, everything. And those people who are in Siachen and all that would, get completely cut off, and automatically Siachen will fall into Pakistan's hands. This was the hope that they had, but it was not to be so. Okay, see, you must understand, high altitudes don't have oxygen, as a result of which normal movement is difficult. Then, even your vehicles, they need oxygen. After all, the engines need oxygen to burn the fuel. They don't get burned, so your engines underperform. Everything underperforms in high altitude. That's the first thing. The second thing is there are not many roads in high altitudes, in mountainous terrain. So it's only the available roads which you can build up on. And either side of the road, there's very little space for deployment because there's steep slopes and things like that. So it's very difficult to deploy in those areas, especially guns and, right. So there's no deployment space. There is no, space to move. You have to bring in, then people underperform. People have to come. And when troops from outside or lower altitudes come into that area, they have to acclimatize minimum, 10, 15 days. So it's not as if it took us a lot of time to first build up. That's why you'll see that when we came to know in April, May, build up started. It was not until June that we really started actually attacking and doing things. Before that, local formations which were acclimatized did whatever they had to. So, right. Then everything had to be done in the face of the enemy. It was open terrain. In those areas, there's no cover, there's no camouflage. Whatever you do is can be seen miles away. So those chaps could actually see what we were up to. And so we had to improvise to put decoys up so that they think that this is the thing. And actually, very surprisingly, we built decoys at that point of time out of cardboards and poles and all that. It worked. And then Pakistanis fired on them also. And whereas we were able to fire, from wherever we were deployed. So multiple problems out there. Then in high altitude, weather is iffy. At times you get very good visibility. At times you don't get visibility. So when you at times of poor visibility, you can't adjust fire. You have to see where you're firing, and that's one thing. And then when you look from bottom up a slope, you can't make out anything. The chap sitting in the top can make out everything at the bottom. The chap at the bottom can't make out anything. It's a matter of optical sighting. So that was a huge problem. And like I said, observation was a huge problem. We didn't know where the enemy was and locations we didn't know. We didn't know what was behind the forward ridges. What was the kind of firepower he had deployed behind? What are the logistics he had? What are the roads the enemy had? So whole lot of problems in high altitude. Let me tell you, after 25 years, some problems would have been solved by technology, but a lot of problems still remain. Yeah, we had a lot of resources. The Indian Army at that point of time was a strong army as it is now, probably as strong as it was. But generally, the level of resources which were available to us and to Pakistanis were approximately at par. When I say at par, okay, we had more modern equipment than the Pakistan army in terms of our Bofors guns, in terms of Grad. We had more firepower. We had more staying power. We had more ammunition. Right? People say, "Oh, will India have enough ammunition and all?" We had enough ammunition in '99, so why won't we have today to fight a war? Right? And that war was fought over 1 month, repeated assaults, everything. We had tremendous experience of fighting in high altitude, especially in Siachen and all that. Plus, the army was very well battle inoculated because most of us in the army those days had gone through one cycle of CI operations. And those days, CI operations in JNK and fighting in mountains made you really tough because these terrorists used to go up in mountains and we used to fight them there. So, physically, I think the army was at its peak. Those people who were actually into the operations. From a perspective, we had Bofors, which was then the most modern weapon system. Air Force didn't work there for obvious reasons. I mean, we had problems in deploying it, and our Air Force couldn't operate very well in high altitudes. Altitudes have their own problem. So it was that. So that was the issue. Yeah, we didn't have satellites, we didn't have UAVs. All those were not there. Communications were by radio and normal line. We didn't have all these fiber optics and all that. A few things we had at base communications, but nothing much more. But this was consistent to that time, right? It was not as if we were at disadvantage for not having any technology. Whatever technology was going at that time, we had. See, okay, let me put it in time sequence so that you understand it. Initial part, no, April, May, till end of May. Um, we underestimated what the enemy, to be very honest, and we didn't have much idea about him. So we tried to do some uphill attacks with very less firepower, and all those attacks got beaten back, and we had suffered huge casualties in that period. And this was also a leftover of the time at that time when, our army was more interested or rather more adept at counterinsurgency ops and anti-terror ops. So we had not fought a conventional war after 71 of this kind. So everyone reacted as if they were reacting to terrorism or infiltration, because that was what initially everyone thought, that these chaps were infiltrators. Once we came to know it was the regular army deployed, Pakistan army, and they were well dug in. And once we came to know the extent of the deployment and we knew that it was a planned deployment, then we switched tracks to being conventional. No more. And then we said, look, af by then we had gained experience about where we were. After all, people died. This experience was at the cost of blood. Then we said, okay, this won't get sorted out by just going uphill and assaulting. Assaulting is a secondary thing. First, plaster them with firepower. So build firepower. So then firepower was built. People trained. People carried out reconnaissance. People then said, okay, this is the way to handle them. And we started hitting them with Bofors, Grad, 105 whatever we had, mortars. And then slowly, incrementally, we started, decimating them. Got hold of their outposts at the lower reaches, made them blind, then move ahead. And where it was a critical post, we overwhelmed them with fire. Then at some places, people went from behind and attacked them. It's a mountaineering, till assaults by all that. So then that is how we overcame them. Then we said, okay, which are the sequence? First, the people said we should take Tololing, and they took Tololing, and then Tiger Hill, and then others also in other sectors also started falling. So it was a methodical operation. It lasted nearly a month. So it was quite a thing. Initially, we were not even equipped well for our administration and medical and evacuation and all that. Uh, Over a period of time, everything built up and everything got settled. By the time the main attack started going in, we were completely firm. On the other hand, the Pakistanis couldn't reinforce themselves. So, right from the beginning, after the initial successes, they were only losing men, they were losing equipment, there were no reinforcements coming. They believed that Indians can't attack. They believed this is a belief. This is now I'm talking from Pakistani books, writers. The Parvez Musharraf and his three henchmen, right, felt that India had no answer, but India had a lot of answers, and we hammered them. First and foremost, I don't think a Kargil like intrusion can again take place. For the simple reason, most of the gaps are plugged.
Right.
Okay. And it's very difficult for any such a large scale intrusion to take place. And if an intrusion takes place today, posts which are forward edge or in contact with Pakistanis, they have drones and things like that, and they'll get found out. So chances of such an intrusion happening are poor. Okay, let's take it for argument's sake. It happens.
Right.
You have to understand. Let's say they've intruded, and a fair bit. Let's say we have come. Indian Army has been completely taken by surprise. It's a hypothetical situation, but for argument's sake, we'll take it. And not only hypothetical, it's improbable. And they've done this intrusion. So how will India react? That's the first question. The first thing is we have to understand today, the communications there have improved. Today, it's not only the one alpha which goes from Srinagar to Dras to Kargil to Ladakh, which is operational. The Kulu Manali route is also operational.
Of course.
Okay. From the Rohtang Pass. And today, there's a 24/7 connectivity across Rohtang Pass, across Baralachala almost being done. So, alternate route is available. So, if you look at it, if it's only in between Kargil and Daras, there's an intrusion taken place. Earlier, you could only build from Srinagar. Today, the build-up can be from both sides at speed,
Right.
and that is what surprised the Chinese. Understand this. I'm not Chinese in 2020. When we built up the way we built up in front of China, they were taken up back because we mirrored the deployment within a couple of weeks.
That be there.
So, your ability to deploy and build up force is tremendous today. It's gone up manifold. And now there is more communications coming between the Kulu Manali axis and the Srinagar Leh axis. So there's a lateral coming up. If that comes up, you are on a pig's back. It doesn't matter not only if Kargil, even if Chinese are intruding at that time simultaneously, you can handle everything in terms of build-up. Okay. So what does this give you? It gives you the fact that in case Kargil something is happening, you can tackle Kargil and you can block Eastern Ladakh. So there is no collusive threat. You can block Eastern Ladakh and take care of your flank. That's the first thing which can happen, right? So the Chinese threat will get marginalized in terms of communications, the infrastructure which has come up. Second thing is that today you have satellite imagery, you have UAVs, right? You have other ground patrols, everything. So the extent of this intrusion will be very clearly known to everyone, where everyone is. So you can pinpoint your targets are very clear. Those days, the targets were only clear when the chap fired at you and then you fired back and acquired those targets and things like that. That would not be there. You would not only know what is in front of you, you would also know what's behind them. in the river slopes where they are deployed, where their infrastructure is, where their logistics bases are, where their guns are, where there's ammunition, right? Despite 24 years, the communication on the other side, on the Pakistani side, is still poor and weak. Just like what happened in Op Sindoor, we knew we could go and hit Noor Khan Air Base in depth. We could hit Rafiki. We could hit, Rahim Yar Khan. You could hit Sargoda in depth accurately. Same thing you can do here. Okay. And you don't have to move, missiles like BrahMos and Smirch and all uh, into that area. You can fire it from away. There's no problem. The second thing is you can bring in heavy long range missiles through Ladakh. You airland them into Ladakh and move them down south. I'm taking the same setting of Kargil because move down south and all your long range vectors can be airlifted into that area and you can build up ammunition from the air. So your build up is going to be fast and you're going to have reach and you're going to have reach well into Pakistan. Simultaneously, you can do the same build up. Whatever we did in that time, we can do it now also.
Right.
So your buildup and of ammunition, missiles, guns, everything will be much faster than what it was earlier. And today you have more potent gun systems. You have more potent missile systems. Right. Before you do attempt any attack, right, you can really hammer them, reduce them to rubble, and then just walk in. Plus, like I said earlier, visibility used to be poor during fog, gave, all that, and all that. Today, the OP officers on ground, you'll still have to put ground attacks. Officers have to go and direct fire because you have to control fire near you. You need Today, these people are equipped with night vision devices. They're equipped with laser range finders, thermal imagers. So you're looking at as if you're fighting at daytime. So your ability is very good. The next thing which is very important is today's guns have the night vision and night fighting capability up to 5 kilometers. At 5 kilometers, if you can pick a target and hit it, and you have the sighting systems to do that. So you can actually pick a target at night. The gun itself can pick a target at night and destroy it. Then, of course, you get missiles, AO, and then you can do this across. You can, into his gun positions, into his ammunition dumps, everything you can destroy. See, the advantage there is that he can't build beyond a point, but whereas we can.
Right.
That's a differential. That's a local differential, right? So whatever little he has, he'll get unhinged. That's a very important thing which we need to, and we can do it at leisure. Not only this, you can put in along with regular artillery, missile systems. Not only this, you can use loitering ammunition. You can use UAVs, right? And you have satellite feed. So your post-strike damage assessment also is very good. So the whole lot of things which are there, which will come in and be of much use to you. So I think the whole situation has changed drastically. And if today we have to do what we have to do in Kargil, we can really decimate them. We don't have to. I mean, I will do it completely first, finish off the Pakistanis by fire, and then let our infantry move in. The fundamentals don't remain the same. Okay, the fundamentals of what happened in Kargil will remain the same. The time will start collapsing. The time will collapse because you can build up faster out there. You can push in more ammunition. You have different sophisticated ammunition. You have no dearth of ammunition. You have better guns. You have better missiles. You can start hammering them, and you can start cutting them off. And our infantry as a result can be bolder. You can then, also, like I told you earlier, you can block off today in the current realities. You can block off the Chinese, right? So I think overall, this whole story will collapse. It's a collapsible story in terms of time. The time collapse is what you can achieve with modern gun systems, ammunition, and planning and everything. And you also networked. Uh, and of course, just remember that Pakistan didn't use Air Force then. We also didn't use Air Force. We don't need to use Air Force even now. I mean, I don't think we need to get into the Air Force at all. With just what we have, and we can get ahead. You also have to remember we have attack hepters. Even those you can use from air to ground. So you have a plethora of equipment. Those days we didn't have all this. Today you have attack captors, you have loitering ammunition, you have guns which can, take on direct firing at 6 kilometers. It is awesome. Plus you have BrahMos, you have Pinaka, you have Smirch. I mean, the works. So you are in a different time zone altogether now. So I will say if what took 30 days those days, I think we should be able to wrap it up in about 15, 20 days. When you're doing a sectoral operation like in Kargil, which is confined to high altitude and it is confined to the line of control, uh, Pakistan also won't like to enlarge that conflict. And he's got very little capability of getting missiles up. And he wouldn't like to go nuclear. He also has some rockets and missiles. He'll try and get it up. So you hammer them. As simple as that. Today, even in the foreseeable future, he won't have a system like BrahMos. When he gets a system like BrahMos, we'll have something better. Don't worry. So, right, you have capability. Range of BrahMos today is nearly 700 kilometers. So you don't have to actually enter that area. You can handle a place like Kargil right from even Srinagar. You have reach, and that kind of reach gives you tremendous advantage. And does he have that kind of reach? No. Does he want to expand? No. Escalation control is with us today also. You saw the way we hit them all over and they couldn't do anything. So what could he do? So you have to neutralize that facility first. First and foremost, neutralize his capability to respond. The moment that happens, you do what you want with him. That's what I said. The first thing is I'll pulverize him, I'll hit him in the front, I'll hit him in the rear, and wherever he is likely to respond. And then do what we have to do. And then, of course, you give him a massive threat. You try this, I'll do this. Simple as that.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, sir.
Bye. Bye.